The mining colony of Helios 7 hung like a tarnished copper penny against the violet nebula, its automated drilling platforms piercing deep into the planetoid's crystalline surface. Dr. Lyra Novak pressed her forehead against the observation deck's thermal glass, watching her breath create expanding circles of fog. 3 years of research had led to this moment, yet nothing could have prepared her for what lay beneath the colony's surface. "Dr. Novak," a stern voice called from behind. "The mining supervisor is demanding we shut down excavation site Theta 9 immediately." Commander Jean Zhao stood with perfect military posture, his cybernetic eye glowing faintly in the dim light. "Says we're interfering with their quarterly quotas." Lyra turned, brushing a strand of silver-streaked black hair from her face. "They can't shut us down now. The quantum signatures are getting stronger by the hour." She pulled up a holographic display from her wrist terminal, showing cascading waves of energy readings. "Whatever's down there, it's waking up." "That's exactly what worries them," Jean replied, his organic eye narrowing. "And me, if I'm being honest. We've got 23 missing drones and 5 automated platforms that have gone dark. The colony council's getting nervous." Before Lyra could respond, the observation deck's emergency lights flashed red. A voice crackled over the intercom, "Unregistered vessel approaching docking bay 3. Security teams to stations." Jin's hand instinctively moved to his pulse pistol. "Were we expecting anyone?" "No," Lyra said, already moving toward the lift. "But I know who it is." The docking bay's atmosphere crackled with ionic discharge as a sleek black ship touched down. Its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making it look like a tear in reality. The boarding ramp extended with a hydraulic hiss, and a figure emerged from the shadows within. Raven Blackwood moved with the fluid grace of someone equally comfortable in zero-gravity or planetary conditions. Her dark skin was marked with geometric tattoos that seemed to shift in the bay's harsh lighting, and her eyes held the peculiar golden sheen of extensive genetic modification. "You're late," Lyra called out, trying to mask her relief at seeing her old friend. Raven's lips curved into a familiar smirk. "Actually, I'm right on time. You just don't know it yet." She reached into her ship and pulled out a heavy case marked with warning symbols. "Found what you asked for in the Osiris Belt. Though I'm curious why a xenoarchaeologist needs quantum containment cells." Jean stepped forward, positioning himself between the two women. "Those are restricted materials. I should arrest you right now." "But you won't," Raven said confidently, "because in about 30 seconds, you're going to have much bigger problems." As if on cue, the entire colony shuddered. Deep below the surface, something ancient stirred. Lyra's wrist terminal erupted with alerts as energy readings spiked off the charts. In the distance, mining platforms began to move of their own accord, their drilling arms realigning toward the stars. "The quantum gates," Lyra whispered. "They're not just artifacts. They're nodes in a network, and we just activated them." Jin's cybernetic eye whirred as it processed multiple data streams. "We've got automated systems going haywire across the colony. Defense turrets are coming online, but they're not responding to override commands." Raven was already heading back to her ship. "That's our cue to leave. Whatever's happening here, it's bigger than your research, Lyra. We need to go. Now." But Lyra stood transfixed by the readings on her terminal. The quantum signatures had resolved into a clear pattern, one that looked disturbingly like a countdown. "We can't leave," she said, her voice thick with realization. "This isn't just about Helios 7. The gates are linked to every mining colony in the sector. If we don't contain this here, then humanity's about to discover we're not alone in the quantum realm," Raven finished, her golden eyes reflecting the emergency lights. "And trust me, we're not ready for what lies between dimensions." Jean drew his pulse pistol, checking its charge. "I've got 3 squads of security personnel en route. Whatever's down there, we can handle it." A hollow laugh escaped Raven's throat. "No, Commander. We really can't. But we might be able to survive it, if we stop thinking like soldiers and scientists, and start thinking like the beings who built these gates. The colony shuddered again, and in the distance, the violet nebula seemed to ripple like water. Reality itself was beginning to bend, and in the quantum spaces between moments, ancient machinery continued its work. The seeds of discord had been planted long ago, and now, finally, they were ready to bloom. Lyra looked between her two companions, the duty-bound commander and the enigmatic pilot, and knew their lives would never be the same. "Well then," she said, pulling up the gate schematics on her terminal, "let's see what's really been hiding beneath this colony." The descent into Helios 7's lower levels felt like entering an alien tomb. Emergency lights cast crimson shadows across walls that no longer looked manufactured, but grown, geometric patterns spreading like frost across metal surfaces. Lyra's quantum scanner pulsed with increasing frequency as they approached excavation site Theta 9. "Those weren't there before," Jean muttered, his cybernetic eye tracking the spreading patterns. "The walls are transforming." Raven ran her fingers along one of the designs, her genetic modifications allowing her to see spectrums beyond normal human vision. "It's not transformation. It's revelation. These patterns were always here, just quantum shifted out of our reality." A scream of twisted metal echoed through the corridors, followed by the distinctive whine of defense turrets charging up. Jin's security teams had created a perimeter around the main excavation site, but their weapons looked painfully inadequate against the otherworldly changes overtaking the colony. "The quantum containment cells won't hold much longer," Lyra said, checking the case Raven had brought. "Whatever's trying to manifest here, it's stronger than anything we designed to contain it." The excavation chamber ahead had become a cathedral of impossible geometry. The mining platforms, once simple drilling machines, had reconfigured themselves into towering archways of spinning metal and light. At their center, the quantum gate pulsed with energy that hurt to look at directly. "Beautiful," Lyra whispered, even as her scientific mind screamed warnings about the laws of physics being casually violated before her eyes. "Commander." One of Jin's security officers sprinted toward them, his armor covered in a web of the spreading patterns. "We've lost contact with the upper levels. All automated systems are operating independently, and they're building something." Jin's jaw tightened. "Building what, exactly?" Before the officer could respond, a low harmonic tone filled the chamber. The quantum gate's pulse synchronized with it, and suddenly the air itself seemed to crystallize. Through the faceted reality, they could see glimpses of other places, other versions of Helios 7 existing simultaneously. "That's impossible," Jean breathed, his cybernetic eye frantically recording everything. Raven laughed darkly. "Impossible stopped being relevant the moment these gates activated. Look there," she pointed to a spot where reality had become particularly thin. Through it, they could see another mining colony, but one built with technology that seemed centuries ahead of their own. Lyra's wrist terminal suddenly projected a three-dimensional map of the sector. Red dots began appearing across it, spreading like a virus. "The other colonies, the gates are activating everywhere. It's a cascade effect. We need to shut it down," Jean declared, raising his pulse pistol toward the gate's central matrix. "Wait!" Both women shouted, but it was too late. The pulse blast struck the quantum field and reflected back, multiplied across dimensional planes. Jean barely dove out of the way as reality rippled around him. "Conventional weapons are worse than useless here," Raven said, helping him up. "We're dealing with technology that doesn't just break the rules, it rewrites them entirely." The security officer who had warned them suddenly convulsed, the patterns on his armor spreading to his exposed skin. His eyes began to glow with the same energy as the gate. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that made their teeth vibrate. "The inheritance protocol has been initiated. All nodes are awakening. The network will be restored." "The network," Lyra repeated, her mind racing through archaeological records. "There are legends, forbidden texts about an ancient civilization that existed in quantum space. They didn't build in normal space-time, they built between it. Another violent shudder ran through the colony. Through the crystallized air, they could see the other versions of Helios 7 beginning to align, like cards being stacked. The harmonics grew stronger, and the security officer's transformed body began to float. This is a merger point, Raven realized, her golden eyes wide. They're not just connecting the colonies, they're trying to collapse all possible versions of reality into one. Jean grabbed Lyra's arm. How do we stop it? We don't, she said, watching in fascination as history literally rewrote itself around them. But we might be able to guide it. The quantum containment cells, they were never meant to stop this. They're meant to channel it. Raven was already moving toward the case, her modified genetics giving her better resistance to the reality distortions. You're thinking we can use them to create a controlled collapse? Direct the merger instead of letting it happen randomly? If we don't, the dimensional stress could tear apart every colony in the sector, Lyra confirmed. She looked at Jean. I need your security teams to place these cells at specific points around the gate. We have to create a resonance pattern that matches the network's frequency. Jean hesitated only a moment before nodding sharply. You heard her. Move those cells into position. Anyone shows signs of transformation, you pull them back immediately. As the teams rushed to comply, Raven pulled Lyra aside. There's something you're not telling them, she said quietly. What happens to us if we succeed? Lyra watched the quantum pattern spreading across her own skin, beautiful and terrible. We become part of the network. Not just observers of the quantum realm, but participants in it. The question isn't whether humanity will be changed by this, it's whether we can guide that change toward evolution instead of destruction. The harmonics reached a fever pitch as the containment cells were positioned. Through the crystallized air, through the infinite versions of themselves reflected across dimensional planes, they could see the true scope of what they had awakened. The network wasn't just a collection of gates, it was a living system, waiting for worthy inheritors. And now, ready or not, humanity had been chosen. Time had become meaningless in the quantum spaces between realities. Lyra's wrist terminal displayed impossible readings as minutes stretched and compressed like taffy. The containment cells had created a stable bubble around them as Helios 7 underwent its transformation, but beyond their protective field, the merger of dimensional planes continued unabated. Look at this, Raven called out, her golden eyes tracking movement through the crystallized air. The patterns aren't random. They're forming some kind of script. Jin's cybernetic eye whirred as it attempted to analyze the flowing symbols. It's like watching code rewrite itself. But not just computer code, the underlying code of reality. Lyra approached one of the more stable formations, her scientist's mind still trying to categorize what she was seeing. The quantum patterns had begun arranging themselves into distinct architectures, impossible structures that existed in multiple states simultaneously. And within them, something was stirring. We have movement, one of Jin's remaining security officers reported, his voice distorted by dimensional interference. Multiple contacts emerging from the quantum gate. They emerged like swimmers breaking through the surface of a pool, except the surface they broke through was reality itself. Humanoid figures composed of crystallized light and geometric patterns, their forms shifting between states of matter with each motion. At their center was a being different from the others, more defined, more present in normal spacetime. I am Sentinel Naira, the figure announced, its voice carrying the same harmonics they'd heard earlier, but controlled, focused. We are the quantum architects, and you have activated the inheritance protocol ahead of schedule. Raven's hand instinctively moved to her weapon, but Lyra stepped forward. I'm Dr. Lyra Novak. We didn't mean to activate anything. We were conducting archaeological research. Intent is irrelevant to causality, Dr. Novak. Naira's form shimmed between different versions of itself. The network responds to capability, not intention. Your species has reached the threshold of quantum understanding necessary to perceive us. Thus, the merger begins. Jean moved to stand beside Lyra, his military training warring with the impossible situation. What merger? What's happening to our colony? Your linear perspective limits your understanding, Naira replied. Helios 7 exists in multiple quantum states across infinite dimensional planes. We are collapsing these states into a singular, evolved form. This is how our civilization grows, by finding those ready to transcend conventional reality. Through the crystallized air, they could see the process happening. Different versions of the colony were aligning, merging, creating something that couldn't have existed in normal space. The automated systems weren't just rebuilding the colony, they were evolving it. The transformed security officer, Lyra realized. He's not just changed, he's becoming like you, isn't he? Naira's form pulsed with approval. The first of many transitions. Those with sufficient quantum resonance will serve as bridges between our civilizations. But there is resistance. As if summoned by the words, alarms blared through what remained of the colony's normal systems. Jin's cybernetic eye displayed tactical data that made him curse. The corporate mining fleet, they're entering the system. They must have detected the energy signatures. They cannot be allowed to interrupt the merger, Naira declared. The dimensional stress is at a critical point. Interference now would cascade across all quantum planes, destroying both our civilizations. Raven's golden eyes narrowed. So we're just supposed to let you transform our entire society without consent? Force humanity to evolve whether they want to or not? Evolution is not a choice, another quantum architect spoke, its form less stable than Naira's. It is an imperative. The network must grow. The spaces between realities must be populated, or the void will be filled by something far worse. The entropy tide, Naira explained, seeing their confusion. A quantum cancer that devours possibilities. We built the network as a barrier against it, but we cannot maintain it alone. We need new perspectives, new quantum architectures. We need humanity's chaos, its creativity, its ability to imagine new forms of existence. Lyra's mind raced with implications. That's why the gates were placed beneath mining colonies. You needed humanity to develop quantum technology on its own, to reach toward the spaces between realities. Until you were ready to help us rebuild them, Naira finished. Through the crystallized air, they could see the corporate fleet approaching. Massive ships designed to enforce humanity's claim on the cosmos, now on collision course with forces they couldn't comprehend. We have to make a choice, Lyra said, looking at her companions. Right now. Jin's cybernetic eye processed multiple tactical scenarios, all ending in disaster if the fleet engaged. Those ships aren't just carrying security forces. They'll have planet cracker weapons. If they think the colony's been compromised, they'll destroy everything, Raven finished. And not just here, at every colony where the gates are activating. They'll try to quarantine the quantum transformation by any means necessary. Unless we show them something more valuable than fear, Lyra suggested. Naira, you said we reached the threshold of understanding. Prove it. Show us what humanity could become if we embrace this change. The quantum architect's form stabilized, becoming almost solid. To do so would irrevocably alter your perception of reality. There would be no return to what you once were. We're past that point already, Lyra said firmly. Show us. Naira raised a crystalline hand, and the quantum patterns around them shifted. Through the faceted reality, they saw not just other versions of Helios 7, but glimpses of what it could become. A nexus point between dimensions, where humanity's innovation merged with the architect's mastery of quantum space. Cities that existed in multiple states, ships that traveled through possibility instead of just space, and power drawn from the infinite potential of quantum reality itself. Beautiful, Lyra whispered, even as her mind struggled to process what she was seeing. But will it be enough to convince them? It has to be, Jean said grimly. Because the alternative is watching everything we know get torn apart by forces we barely understand. The corporate fleet grew larger in the crystallized air, weapons charging. Humanity's first encounter with a quantum civilization hung in the balance, and 3 people stood at the crossroads of evolution itself. The choice they made would echo across every possible reality, if they survived to make it. The corporate fleet hung in space like a constellation of daggers, their weapons primed to excise what they saw as an infection spreading through their mining colonies. Inside Helios 7's transformed excavation chamber, Lyra worked frantically at her wrist terminal, trying to establish communication through the quantum interference. "They're not responding to standard frequencies," Gene reported, his cybernetic eye tracking multiple attempted transmission channels. "And they've deployed boarding shuttles." Raven's golden eyes narrowed as she watched probability waves ripple through the crystallized air. "They're going to breach the colony in 17 different quantum states simultaneously. Traditional defense is impossible." "Then we don't defend traditionally," Lyra said, looking to Sentinel Naira. "Can you show them what you showed us? Project the quantum visions shipwide?" The quantum architect's form flickered with uncertainty. Such a massive quantum reveal could overwhelm unprepared minds. "The psychological damage will be less than planetary bombardment," Gene interrupted. "My tactical analysis shows they're powering up planet cracker weapons. We have minutes, at most." Naira's crystalline features shifted through multiple expressions before settling on resolution. "Very well. But we must establish quantum resonance points throughout the colony. Your security teams are already transformed," Raven finished, gesturing to the officers whose bodies now rippled with geometric patterns. "They're your bridges. Use them." The chamber erupted with harmonic energy as Naira interfaced with the transformed humans. Through their shared quantum state, a new kind of awareness began spreading through Helios 7 systems. The crystallized air expanded, turning the entire colony into a lens through which reality itself could be perceived anew. The first corporate boarding shuttle breached the outer hull just as the quantum reveal began. Heavily armed troops stormed inside, only to freeze as their perception shattered and reformed. Through their helmet feeds, the entire fleet watched as Helios 7 displayed its true nature, not just a mining colony, but a nexus of infinite possibility. "Look at their vital signs," Gene said, monitoring the invasion force through his augmented vision. "Their minds are trying to process quantum perception for the first time. Some are adapting, others." Several soldiers collapsed, their consciousness overwhelmed. But others stood transfixed, watching reality unfold around them in ways their training never prepared them for. Through the quantum network, Lyra could feel their fear turning to wonder. "Corporate command," she broadcast on all frequencies, her voice carrying new harmonics. "This is Dr. Lyra Novak. What you're seeing is humanity's next step. Not an infection, but an evolution. The quantum architects aren't invaders, they're reaching out across dimensional planes because they need us as much as we need them." The fleet's response came in fragments, their communication systems struggling with quantum interference. "Dr. Novak, impossible readings, weapons registering multiple target states, cannot verify reality of situation." "Because reality itself is changing," Raven added, her genetic modifications allowing her to project her consciousness through the quantum field. "Your sensors aren't malfunctioning. They're working better than ever, showing you what was always there, just outside our ability to perceive." Through the crystallized air, they could see confusion spreading through the corporate fleet. Ship systems reported simultaneous contradictory readings as quantum uncertainty manifested at a macro scale. Weapons remained armed but targeting systems failed as their targets existed in multiple states at once. "The entropy tide approaches," Naira announced suddenly, her form becoming more urgent. "The dimensional disturbance of our merger has drawn its attention. We must complete the transformation or risk losing everything to its void." As if in response to her words, the edge of the system began to darken. Not with traditional shadow, but with the absence of possibility itself. Where it touched, quantum potential simply ceased to exist, leaving only singular, unchangeable states. "Corporate command," Gene broadcast, his military authority carrying weight even through quantum harmonics. "I know you came here to contain a threat. But look at your scans. Look at what's approaching. That's the real threat, the death of possibility itself. We need to merge our strength with the architect's knowledge, or there won't be anything left to fight over. The fleet's formation wavered as ships registered the approaching void. Through their quantum-enhanced perception, Lyra could feel the moment corporate resolve began to fracture. Not in surrender, but in transformation, as humanity's instinct for survival encountered a threat that could only be faced through evolution. We're reading, colony-wide quantum state changes, command transmitted. All mining facilities in the sector reporting similar transformations. Request guidance on adaptation protocols. Lyra smiled, feeling the quantum pattern spreading across her own skin. Don't fight it. Let your perspective expand. The network isn't just a weapon or a tool, it's a new way of existing. And we're all about to become part of it. The darkness of the entropy tide drew closer, but now the combined consciousness of humanity and the quantum architects began to rise in response. Throughout the colony, across the fleet, and spreading to every mining facility in the sector, a new kind of existence was taking shape. The awakening had begun, and there would be no returning to what they had been before. The only question was what they would become in the infinite possibility spaces between what was and what could be. The transformation of Helios 7 was complete, but it marked only the beginning. Through the crystallized air that had once been normal space, Lyra watched as quantum architecture spread across the sector. Mining colonies shed their industrial shapes, becoming luminous nodes in an ever-expanding network of possibility. The corporate fleet is fully integrated, Gene reported, his cybernetic eye now capable of processing quantum data streams. The military vessels had transformed into iridescent structures that existed simultaneously as ships and stations, weapons and windows into other dimensions. They're coordinating with other colonies to establish quantum defense grids against the entropy tide. Raven emerged from a probability wave, her genetic modifications having evolved to let her surf quantum states at will. The void is still advancing, but slower now. The network is actually pushing it back in some sectors. Sentinel Naira's form had stabilized into something more comprehensible to human perception, though she still shifted between states when agitated. The merger has exceeded our projections. Humanity's adaptability is remarkable. You're not just accepting quantum architecture, you're innovating with it. She was right. Throughout the transformed colonies, humans were discovering new ways to manipulate quantum space. Scientists like Lyra were learning to read the underlying codes of reality. Security forces like Jin's teams were developing quantum combat techniques that treated probability itself as both weapon and shield. And pioneers like Raven were pushing the boundaries of what consciousness could be when freed from single-state existence. We're getting signals from Earth, Gene announced suddenly. The quantum transformations have breached the isolation protocols of every major population center. They're requesting, no, demanding information about what's happening out here. Lyra felt the weight of history pressing against the present moment. They must be terrified, watching reality itself change around them. We need to show them what we've learned, help them understand that this isn't an end, but a beginning. There's something else, Raven said, her expression troubled as she emerged from another probability stream. I've been surfing quantum echoes, looking at potential futures. The entropy tide, it's not a natural phenomenon. It's weaponized void, created by something that exists outside the network entirely. Naira's form flickered with distress. Impossible. The tide has existed since your civilization first built the network, Lyra finished, understanding blooming across quantum states. It's not attacking order, it's attacking change itself. Something out there wants reality to be fixed, unchangeable, singular. Then they chose the wrong species to target, Gene said grimly. His cybernetic systems had merged with quantum architecture, letting him see tactical probabilities as clearly as physical space. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our adaptability, it's our stubborn refusal to accept limitations. Through the crystallized air, they could see the truth of his words playing out. Each transformed colony was becoming a unique expression of quantum potential, influenced by the cultures and needs of its inhabitants. The network wasn't standardizing humanity, it was amplifying its diversity across infinite dimensional planes. "Look," Raven called, directing their attention to where the entropy tide pressed against the network's boundaries. "The void isn't just being pushed back. It's changing color where it contacts human-modified quantum space. We're not just defending against it, we're infecting it with possibility." Lyra's quantum-enhanced senses could perceive the mathematics of what was happening. Human consciousness, merged with the architect's quantum technology, was introducing chaos into the void's perfect entropy. Where it had once destroyed potential, now it was being forced to carry the seeds of new realities. This was always meant to happen, Naira realized, her form stabilizing further as understanding reached across quantum states. Not just the merger of our civilizations, but the creation of something entirely new. The network wasn't built to just defend against the void, it was built to transform it. The transformed mining colonies pulsed with new purpose as this understanding spread through the quantum consciousness they all now shared. Humanity had not just inherited the network, they had inherited a mission to change the nature of reality itself. "Earth is waiting for an explanation," Jean reminded them, monitoring the quantum signals flooding in from humanity's homeworld. "They need to understand what they're becoming part of." Lyra stepped forward, her consciousness extending across the quantum planes that now felt as natural as breathing. "Then let's show them. Not just what we've become, but what we're going to do next. Because this isn't just about survival anymore, it's about rewriting the rules of existence itself." Through the crystallized air, through the quantum streams that connected all possibility, her message spread. Humanity had spent its history pushing boundaries and exploring frontiers. Now those frontiers existed in dimensions they were only beginning to comprehend, and the ultimate challenge lay before them, not just to exist in infinite possibility, but to defend it, expand it, and ultimately transform the very forces that threaten it. The quantum inheritance was complete. The real work was just beginning.